For decades, Afghanistan was seen as a backwater. Ruled over by the Soviets, fought over by warlords, and finally governed by the Taliban, aid agencies had always struggled to work in the country. "9/11 and the fall of the Taliban would change everything.
Suddenly, Afghanistan's, in the limelight of international attention, and that's a much better position to be than completely forgotten, which is what the situation was in the 1990s. Just this incredibly happy moment in a country where you haven't experienced too many of those happy moments.
Kabul was a free city after 5 years of perhaps the most extreme religious system anywhere on earth.
It was just glorious. You were starting to see a country emerge, and a real feeling of being useful too, because when you're starting from the base that Afghanistan was starting from, things are changing rapidly. Good things. There was a lot of good things happening.
This well at Mar-e-Sarraj is just one of several hundred now being installed across the province, benefiting some 500,000 people.
We were all optimistic about what could be done and a new government emerging and a new democratic government, and we could move away from the old warlordism of the past and the Taliban of the past. There's grounds for optimism that Afghanistan had a brighter future.
For the coalition that had defeated the Taliban, aid became a key part of its strategy to tie the country to the West and keep the Taliban out for good.
There is now the real prospect of a stable and prosperous future for the people here. And it is our commitment and our obligation as an international community to make sure that we work with you to achieve that.
The politicians were making really good promises. We're not going to forget you this time. Remember Bush and Blair making these speeches. We're in this for the long haul. We're going to help you rebuild your country the right way this time. And if you're in the aid game, it's like, finally, we're going to have a chance to do this right.
Several things happened immediately. Money became readily available. Lots of agencies who had not worked in Afghanistan before showed up, flooded with money, and everybody was in a state of optimism that things were going to go into the right direction.
The classic humanitarian angle is to be very humble about what we can achieve, and you shouldn't aspire to anything more than that.
What did you aspire to?
I aspired to being part of something bigger than that. There was the possibility of rebuilding a foundation that would last long beyond the symptomatic treatment of the latest emergency.
There was a dizziness in the aid world. This merging of the state, of the military and humanitarianism was this new kind of colonial imperative. They believed that they could create states which were like us, would friendly towards us, shared our values.
With Western aid money flowing in, the Afghan government of Hamid Karzai attached conditions to aid agencies wanting to work in the country.
In order to get contracts to carry out aid projects in different parts of the country, the Karzai government made aid organisations have to sign on to their national policy. The whole idea was we use aid to expand the legitimacy of the Karzai regime all around the country. Most aid organisations joined the club, and it seemed like a good idea, and everybody was working for peace, love and harmony in Afghanistan, and nobody expected the Taliban to come back.
But just 2 years after the Taliban were supposed to have been defeated, they were back.
Frontline British forces are fighting a war against the Taliban. The battle ended with a 1,000-pound bomb dropped from the air and another piece of Gamsa destroyed.
Suddenly, the aid organisations that had thrown their lot in with the coalition forces found themselves subject to attack by the Taliban.
With aid workers now major targets, they were forced to retreat behind high security walls, in a process that became known as bunkerization.
I mean, I think when you've gone back and forth from Afghanistan over the years, to see a deterioration in the ability of aid organisations to even just live in Kabul without massive security around them is very depressing.
Every time I've gone back to Afghanistan over the past 10 years, you know, the universe of the aid worker is shrinking. You're basically living in a bunkerized compound, in a fortified aid compound that looks no different seen from the outside to the military bases.
My employers wanted me to go in this armored car and have a bodyguard. And I mean, how can you relate to another human being in a conversation when you get out of this big monstrosity that's got walls this thick and there's a big guy beside you with a gun and you're saying sort of, so, how's it going? You know, you can't have a normal conversation with somebody in that regard.
An aid project that sought to transform Afghanistan finds itself unable to provide even basic humanitarian assistance.
Right, let's go.
Critics argue it's a failure the aid agencies largely brought on themselves.
Unless you are neutral, unless you're seen as being balanced in who you're helping, you will be seen as having taken sides. Agencies put themselves in a situation where they were working for one side.
So suddenly, from their space of maneuver being quite large, they've had to withdraw from more and more regions of Afghanistan until they're in a bunker in Kabul, really unable to do very much because they abandoned their neutrality.
What they say is that you took sides in a conflict and you became part of the conflict.
Okay, so this is the heart of it. Did we take sides in Afghanistan? There's two ways of taking sides. Our real choice isn't between whether we like the US or the Taliban. Our real choice is whether we're on the side of the Afghan people who frankly are getting screwed by both of you.
But you're getting your money from the US.
We're getting our money from the US, so that places a much higher obligation on us.